The moment I saw my daughter hand her lunchbox to the homeless woman, my heart stopped, not from pride. From horror. "Ivy, no!" I shouted across the parking lot, my voice sharp enough to make other parents turn and stare. But it was too late. My 7-year-old daughter had already passed her pink unicorn lunchbox through the chain-link fence to the grimy hands reaching through from the other side. I sprinted toward her, my heels clicking frantically against the asphalt. The elementary school pickup line had just started moving, and I'd only looked away for 30 seconds, 30 seconds, to answer a work email. In that time, my daughter had apparently decided to play humanitarian. The woman on the other side of the fence was exactly what you'd expect. Matted hair, the color of ash, clothes that looked like they'd been fished from a dumpster. Skin weathered and dirty, eyes that darted nervously like a cornered animal. She clutched Ivy's lunchbox against her chest like it was treasure, backing away from the fence even as I approached. "Ivy Monroe Fletcher, get away from that fence right now." I grabbed my daughter's arm, harder than I intended, and yanked her backward. "Mommy, you're hurting me." Ivy protested, but I didn't loosen my grip. "What were you thinking?" I hissed, pulling her toward our car. "You don't give your things to strangers. You don't go near that fence. You don't—" "But she was hungry." Ivy's eyes filled with tears. "She said she was hungry, Mommy. I had food." "You always say we should help people who need help." My face burned as I realized we had an audience. Other parents were watching, some with sympathy, some with that judgmental look that said they'd never let their child do something so foolish. Mrs. Carmichael from the PTA was whispering to another mother, both of them glancing my way, in the car. Now, I practically shoved Ivy into the back seat and buckled her in with trembling hands. Through the rear window, I could still see the homeless woman standing on the other side of the fence, holding the pink lunchbox, watching us with those unsettling eyes. I climbed into the driver's seat and locked the doors immediately, a habit I'd developed since moving to this neighborhood 6 months ago. Riverside Elementary was supposed to be one of the best schools in the district, but it bordered a rough area. That fence was there for a reason. "Mommy, why are you so mad?" Ivy asked from the back seat, her voice small and hurt. "You always say—" "I say a lot of things," I interrupted, pulling out of the parking lot with more force than necessary. "But I also say you don't talk to strangers. You don't go near that fence. You don't give away your belongings to random people on the street." Do you understand how dangerous that was? She wasn't dangerous. She was sad. You can't tell if someone's dangerous just by looking at them, Ivy. That's the point. That woman could have grabbed you, could have pulled you through the fence, could have hurt you, but she didn't. That's not the point. We drove in tense silence. I gripped the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles went white. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if that woman came back tomorrow? What if she started waiting for Ivy? What if she'd been scoping out victims, and my daughter had just painted a target on her back? I thought about Trevor, my ex-husband, and how he'd use this against me if he found out. "Can't even keep our daughter safe during pickup," he'd say, that smug look on his face. Maybe she should live with me full-time. The custody battle had been brutal. I'd won primary custody by a narrow margin, mainly because Trevor's job required extensive travel. But he was always looking for ammunition, always ready to prove I was an unfit mother, and now this. We arrived at our townhouse, a modest 3-bedroom in a gated community that cost half my monthly salary. I'd stretched my budget to breaking point to afford this place, to get Ivy into a good school district, to provide the stability and safety that every parenting book insisted children needed. "Go to your room," I said as we entered. "No iPad, no TV, just sit and think about what you did. But Mommy, room." Now, Ivy's face crumpled, and she ran upstairs, crying. I heard her bedroom door slam, and immediately felt like the worst mother in the world. But I was too angry, too scared, too shaken to deal with it properly right now. I poured myself a glass of wine. It was only 3:30 p.m., but desperate times, and collapsed onto the couch. My phone buzzed. A text from my boss. Did you finish the Mitchell proposal? Client wants it by 5. Shit, I'd completely forgotten. I opened my laptop and tried to focus, but my mind kept replaying the scene. Ivy's innocent face as she handed over her lunchbox. The homeless woman's grimy hands reaching through the fence. The judgment in the other parent's eyes. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Mrs. Fletcher? This is Principal Hartwell from Riverside Elementary. My stomach dropped. Yes? I wanted to discuss an incident that occurred during pickup today. One of our staff members observed your daughter interacting with an individual outside the school fence. I understand you intervened, which was absolutely the right thing to do, but I wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss safety protocols and perhaps have a conversation with Ivy about stranger danger. Translation: your daughter screwed up, and we need to make sure you're actually parenting her properly. Of course, I said, trying to sound professional and competent. When would you like to meet? Tomorrow morning. Say 8 a.m. before classes start? I'll be there. I hung up and drained my wine glass. Perfect, just perfect. Now the school thought I was raising a child with no sense of self-preservation. Upstairs I heard Ivy crying softly. The sound tugged at my heart, but I stayed on the couch. She needed to understand the severity of what she'd done. Compassion was admirable, but not at the expense of safety. My phone rang again. My mother this time. Hi, Mom. Diana, I just heard from Susan Carmichael about what happened at school today. She says Ivy gave her lunch to some vagrant. Is that true? Of course. The PTA gossip mill worked faster than CNN breaking news. It's handled, Mom. Is it? Because Susan said the woman looked absolutely filthy. What if she had diseases? What if she follows Ivy? Diana, you need to be more vigilant. This is exactly why I said you should have moved to a better neighborhood. I have to go, Mom. Work emergency. Diana, I hung up. I couldn't deal with my mother's criticism right now. She'd been against the divorce, against me taking the marketing director position because it required too many hours, against this neighborhood because it wasn't prestigious enough. Nothing I did was ever quite right in her eyes. I went upstairs and stood outside Ivy's door. I could hear her inside, talking quietly to her stuffed animals, telling them a story about a hungry princess who needed help. I knocked softly. Ivy, can I come in? Silence. Then, okay, I opened the door. Ivy sat on her bed, surrounded by stuffed animals, her face blotchy from crying. She looked so small, so vulnerable. 7 years old, and still believing the world was good, that people could be trusted, that kindness was always rewarded. I sat beside her on the bed. Sweetheart, I need you to understand why I got so upset. Because I talked to a stranger, not just that. Because that stranger could have hurt you. Because there are people in the world who might seem sad or hungry, but they're actually dangerous. And I can't lose you, Ivy. You're the most important thing in my life. If something happened to you... My voice cracked. Ivy looked at me with those big brown eyes that were so much like her father's. But Jesus said to feed the hungry. We learned that in Sunday school. I sighed. Of course. We'd started attending the community church 3 months ago, partly because I thought it would be good for Ivy to have a moral foundation, partly because I was desperately trying to build a social network in this new city. I hadn't anticipated that the lessons would be taken quite so literally. Jesus also wants you to be safe. He wants you to be smart. You can help people, but you need to do it the right way. Through proper channels, organizations, not by handing your lunch to random people through a fence. What's her name? What, the hungry lady? What's her name? I don't know, honey. I didn't ask. Then how do you know she's dangerous? The question hung in the air, simple and devastating. How did I know? I didn't. I'd made assumptions based on appearance, based on circumstance, based on fear, but that didn't change the reality. Homeless people could be unpredictable. Drug addicts, mentally ill, dangerous. The statistics were clear. My job as a mother was to protect my child, not to teach her to be recklessly charitable. I just know that you need to be more careful. I said finally, promise me you won't do that again. Promise me you won't go near that fence or talk to strangers. Ivy was quiet for a long moment. Then reluctantly, I promise. Good. I kissed her forehead. Now how about we order pizza for dinner? Your favorite pepperoni and olives? Her face brightened slightly. Can I watch a show while we eat? One episode. Then homework and bath. Okay, Mommy. I went back downstairs feeling marginally better. Crisis averted. Lesson learned. Tomorrow I'd meet with the principal. We'd have a formal stranger danger talk with Ivy, and this whole... But as I opened my laptop to finish the Mitchell proposal, I couldn't shake the image of that homeless woman clutching Ivy's pink unicorn lunchbox. Something about her eyes had seemed familiar. No, that was ridiculous. I didn't know any homeless people. I pushed the thought away and focused on work. The proposal was due in 90 minutes, and I couldn't afford to miss another deadline. Still, the unease lingered. The next morning, I dropped Ivy at her classroom and headed to Principal Hartwell's office with a knot in my stomach. The school's administrative wing smelled like coffee and photocopier toner, bringing back unpleasant memories of my own childhood trips to the principal's office. Principal Hartwell was a woman in her late 50s with steel-grey hair and the bearing of someone who'd seen every parenting failure imaginable. She gestured for me to sit in one of the chairs facing her desk. Mrs. Fletcher, thank you for coming in on short notice. Of course. I'm sorry about yesterday. I've already spoken with Ivy about stranger danger and appropriate boundaries. I'm sure you have. Principal Hartwell folded her hands on her desk. However, I'm concerned this might be part of a pattern. Ivy's teacher has mentioned that she's been overly friendly with some of the school's cafeteria workers, giving them drawings, asking personal questions about their families, offering to share her snacks. I felt defensive heat creep up my neck. That sounds like she's just being a kind child. Oh, absolutely. Ivy's kindness is remarkable, but it also makes her vulnerable. Children who are too trusting, too eager to help, too quick to befriend adults, they can become targets. Targets for what exactly? Mrs. Fletcher. Principal Hartwell's voice softened slightly. I've been in education for 30 years. I've seen things I wish I hadn't. Predators specifically seek out children like Ivy, the helpers, the empathetic ones, the children who've been taught that all adults deserve respect and trust. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to ensure your daughter stays safe. The knot in my stomach tightened. What are you suggesting? I'd like to have our school counselor work with Ivy on some age-appropriate lessons about boundaries and safety. Nothing traumatic or frightening, just practical skills for recognizing situations that require adult intervention. Fine, yes, whatever you think is best. Good. Principal Hartwell made a note on a pad. And regarding the woman from yesterday, we've increased security presence near that section of fence. We've also reported the incident to the police, in case this individual has been loitering near other schools. You called the police. Standard procedure when there's a potential threat near campus. I nodded numbly. A potential threat. That's what the homeless woman had become in the official narrative. Not a hungry person seeking help. A potential threat. I left the meeting feeling worse than when I'd arrived. As I walked back to my car, my phone rang. Unknown number again. Hello? Is this Diana Fletcher? A woman's voice, professional but cautious. Yes, who's this? My name is Officer Lauren Vega with the Riverside Police Department. I'm following up on a report from Riverside Elementary about an incident involving your daughter and an unhoused individual. Do you have a few minutes to discuss what happened? Jesus, the school had really called the cops. Sure, I can talk. Can you describe the individual your daughter interacted with? I closed my eyes, trying to recall details through my panic. Woman, maybe late 40s or early 50s. Dirty blonde or grey hair, it was hard to tell. Very thin, wearing layers of clothing despite the warm weather. There was something about her face, like maybe she'd been pretty once before. Before what? Before whatever happened to her happened. Officer Vega was quiet for a moment. Did she say anything to you? Make any threats? Try to follow your daughter? No, nothing like that. She just took the lunchbox and backed away. Honestly, she seemed more scared of me than I was of her. Okay, we have increased patrols in that area. If you see this individual again, please call us immediately. Do not engage. I won't. After hanging up, I sat in my car for a long moment. The parking lot was empty now, all the children safely deposited in their classrooms, all the parents off to their jobs, or their errands, or their yoga classes. I thought about the woman again, her nervous eyes, her thin, trembling hands, the way she'd clutched that lunchbox like it was a lifeline. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Have you thought about what we discussed? About Trevor's offer? I groaned. Trevor had recently proposed a compromise on custody. If I'd agree to let Ivy spend summers and holidays with him, he'd reduce the child support payments but help with private school tuition. My mother thought this was reasonable. I thought it was manipulative bullshit. I ignored the text and drove to work. My office was downtown in a glass tower that housed a mid-sized marketing firm. I'd been here for 8 months, still the new person trying to prove herself. My boss, Gerald Montgomery, was the kind of man who said things like, "I don't see gender," while consistently promoting men over women and calling his female employees sweetie. "Diana," he called as I passed his office. "Got a minute?" Never a good sign. I entered his office, which was decorated with golf trophies and framed photos of Gerald with various minor celebrities. The Mitchell proposal was good, he said, which surprised me. Gerald wasn't big on compliments. But I'm moving you to the Donovan account instead. The Donovan account? That's not even close to my specialty. That's all tech sector stuff. Exactly. You need to diversify. Can't have you pigeonholed into just retail marketing. The Donovan presentation is in 2 weeks. They're a major potential client, so don't screw it up. 2 weeks? Gerald, that's barely enough time to... You'll figure it out. You're a smart girl. I clenched my teeth at girl, but said nothing. I needed this job. Needed the health insurance, the salary, the stability. Especially now, with Trevor looking for any excuse to drag me back to court. I spent the rest of the day buried in research about Donovan Tech, trying to understand their brand identity and marketing needs. By the time 6 p.m. rolled around, my eyes were burning from screen time and my shoulders were knotted with tension. I picked up Ivy from after-school care, where she was drawing pictures with the other late pickup kids. She ran to me with a smile, waving a piece of paper. "Look what I made, Mommy." It was a drawing of 2 stick figures, one big, one small, holding hands. Between them was what appeared to be a lunchbox with hearts floating around it. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." "Who are the people?" "That's me and the hungry lady." I wanted her to know that someone cares about her. My chest tightened. Ivy, we talked about this, I know. I'm not going to give her food again, but I can still pray for her, right? You can't get in trouble for praying. What was I supposed to say to that? No, don't pray for homeless people. Of course you can pray for her, baby. That's very kind. In the car, Ivy was quiet for a while. Then, Mommy, why don't hungry people have homes? It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes people make bad choices. Sometimes they get sick. Sometimes they just have bad luck. What kind of bad luck? All kinds. They might lose their job, or their family, or their house might burn down. Lots of things can go wrong. Did the hungry lady make bad choices? I don't know, Ivy. I don't know anything about her. Maybe we should ask her. No, absolutely not. We're not going near her again. But, Ivy, enough. We drove the rest of the way in silence. At home, I heated up leftovers while Ivy did her homework at the kitchen table. She kept glancing at me, clearly wanting to say something, but holding back. The drawing of the two stick figures sat beside her math worksheet, a colorful accusation. After dinner, I gave Ivy her bath and tucked her into bed. As I was about to turn off her light, she grabbed my hand. Mommy! If we were hungry and didn't have a home, would someone help us? The question hit me like a punch. Of course, sweetheart. We have family. We have friends. We'd never be in that situation. But what if we were? What if something bad happened and we didn't have anyone? I thought about my trust fund, which wasn't huge but was enough for emergencies. About my retirement account. About my mother, who despite her criticism would never let us starve. About Trevor, who would swoop in to prove I couldn't handle single parenthood, but would at least ensure Ivy was cared for. We would have someone, I said firmly. We'd always have someone. That's why it's important to work hard and make good choices and build a safety net, so we never end up in that position. But the hungry lady probably worked hard too. Maybe she made good choices too. And she still ended up hungry, out of the mouths of babes. It's complicated, sweetheart. Now go to sleep. You have school tomorrow. I kissed her forehead and left the room, but Ivy's words haunted me as I poured another glass of wine and tried to work on the Donovan Tech proposal. Maybe she worked hard too. Maybe she made good choices too. I pushed the thought away. I couldn't let my 7-year-old's naive compassion cloud my judgment. The world was harsh. People who ended up on the streets usually had made mistakes, addiction, crime, mental illness, poor life choices. It was tragic, but it wasn't my responsibility. My responsibility was to protect my daughter. Still, as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the woman's eyes. Something about them had seemed familiar. Like I should know her, like I'd seen her before, but where? When I fell asleep, still trying to rem. The next afternoon, pickup went smoothly. I arrived early, parked close to the gate, and watched Ivy like a hawk as she emerged from the building. She waved at me, then glanced toward the fence. The woman was there again, same spot, same ragged clothes. But this time she wasn't approaching the fence. She was sitting on the ground about 20 feet away, leaning against a telephone pole, staring at nothing. Without the pink lunchbox, I realized. She'd either eaten the contents or discarded it. Ivy noticed her too. I saw my daughter's face brighten with recognition, saw her start to move in that direction. "Ivy!" I called sharply. "Car! Now!" Ivy hesitated, conflict written all over her face. Then she obeyed, walking slowly to our car, glancing back every few steps. As I buckled her in, I saw 2 police officers approaching the woman. She stood up quickly, gathering her bags, plastic shopping bags stuffed with belongings, and started to walk away. One officer followed her, speaking into his radio. "Are they going to help her?" Ivy asked, pressing her face against the window. "They're making sure she's not bothering anyone." But she wasn't bothering anyone. She was just sitting. It's not safe for her to be near a school, honey. There are rules about these things. I pulled out of the parking lot quickly, not wanting Ivy to see whatever happened next. In my rearview mirror, I saw the officers talking to the woman, gesturing for her to move along. That night, I couldn't focus on the Donovan proposal. I kept thinking about the woman, about where she'd go now that the police had moved her along. It was supposed to rain later this week. Did she have shelter? Did she have another meal? Why did I care? I had my own problems, but the questions wouldn't leave me alone. The next day was Saturday. I'd planned to spend the morning working on the proposal while Ivy watched cartoons, but Ivy had other ideas. "Mommy, can we go to the store?" "We don't need groceries, sweetie. Not for us. For the hungry lady. We could buy her food and bring it to her." "That's not dangerous, right? If we bring it to her instead of her coming to us." "Ivy, no." "But Mommy." I said, "No, we're not doing this. That woman is not our responsibility." But Jesus said, "Ivy Rose Fletcher, stop using Sunday school to manipulate me." Ivy's eyes filled with tears. She ran upstairs and I heard her bedroom door slam. Again! I was becoming really good at making my daughter cry lately. I tried to work, but guilt gnawed at me. What was I teaching Ivy? That compassion had limits? That safety trumped kindness? That some people weren't worth helping? Yes, a voice in my head said firmly. Those are exactly the lessons she needs to learn. The world is harsh. Better she learns it now than gets hurt learning it later. But another voice, quieter, more insistent, whispered, "What if Ivy's right? What if that woman is just hungry? What if a simple act of kindness is all she needs?" I pushed the laptop aside and went upstairs. Ivy was in her room, drawing again. More pictures of stick figures sharing food. "Ivy, can we talk?" She didn't look up. "Are you going to yell at me again?" "I'm not." I stopped, took a breath. "I'm not going to yell. But I need you to understand something. It's my job to keep you safe. Even when it means saying no to things that seem kind or good. Even when it means disappointing you. Do you understand? I guess. That woman, the hungry lady, we don't know anything about her. We don't know if she's safe. We don't know if she's... Well, you think she's crazy. I think she might be struggling with things we can't fix. And I think it's not safe for a little girl to try to help her. But what if nobody helps her?" And there it was. The question I couldn't answer. Because the truth was, probably nobody would. That woman would probably stay hungry, stay on the streets, stay invisible until she died or got arrested or disappeared. And that wasn't my fault, wasn't my responsibility. I had my own child to protect, but Ivy was looking at me with those big eyes, waiting for an answer that would make sense of a world where hungry people existed and nobody helped them. "There are organizations," I said finally. "Shelters, food banks, people who are trained to help homeless people. That's who should be helping her, not 7-year-old girls. Can we give money to those organizations?" "Sure, yes, we can do that." "Would that make you feel better?" Ivy considered this, a little bit. "But she still won't know that we care about her. She'll just think everyone hates her. The wisdom of children is simultaneously beautiful and exhausting." "I'll tell you what," I heard myself say. "Tomorrow after church we'll stop by the grocery store. We'll buy some non-perishable food items and some water bottles. We'll drop them off at a homeless shelter. Would that help?" Ivy's face lit up. "Really?" "Really. But we do it at the shelter, with trained professionals. We don't go looking for the woman. We don't go near that fence. Understood?" "Understood." She hugged me, and I felt the tension drain from her little body. Crisis averted. For now. That night after Ivy was asleep, I poured another glass of wine and Googled homeless woman Riverside area. Nothing useful came up. Just news articles about the city's growing homeless population, debates about shelter funding, opinion pieces about compassion versus safety. I was about to close my laptop when I saw a Facebook post in a local community group. Someone had shared a photo, grainy, taken from a distance, of the woman from the fence. Does anyone know this woman? The post read, "She's been hanging around Riverside Elementary for the past week. I've called the police multiple times, but they just move her along, and she comes back. My children are terrified. Why isn't anyone doing something about this?" The comments were a mix of sympathy and vitriol. "Poor thing probably just needs help. I don't care what she needs. Keep her away from our kids." This is what happens when the city defunds mental health services. This is what happens when people make bad life choices. I heard she's dangerous. Someone said she attacked a jogger last month. That's not true. I've talked to her. She's harmless. I stared at the photo, zooming in on the woman's face. There was something I couldn't quite place. A familiarity that nagged at me. Who was she? Sunday morning we attended church as usual. Avi wore her favorite dress, purple with flowers, and carried a small purse she'd insisted on bringing. "What's in the purse, sweetheart?" I asked as we walked into the sanctuary. "Just stuff," she said evasively. During the sermon, Pastor Mitchell talked about the Good Samaritan. Of course he did. The universe had a sense of humor. The Samaritan saw a man in need, Pastor Mitchell intoned from the pulpit, and he didn't ask questions. He didn't wonder if the man deserved help. He didn't worry about inconvenience or cost. He simply helped, because that's what love looks like. That's what faith looks like. I felt Ivy glance at me. I kept my eyes forward. After the service, as promised, we went to the grocery store. I let Ivy help pick items: granola bars, peanut butter, crackers, bottled water, canned soup, simple, non-perishable items that someone without a kitchen could use. "Can we get her a blanket too?" Ivy asked. "It's going to be cold soon. The shelter will have blankets, honey, but a new one." So she knows someone thought about her specifically. I hesitated, then grabbed a fleece throw from the home goods aisle. $19.99. Not expensive, but it felt like crossing a line somehow. From anonymous charity to personal investment, we drove to St. Vincent's shelter on the east side of town. It was a squat brick building that looked more like a warehouse than a place of refuge. The parking lot was mostly empty. Sunday afternoons were apparently slow times for charitable donations. Inside, a tired-looking woman in her 40s greeted us from behind a plexiglass partition. "Help you?" "We'd like to donate these items," I said, setting the bags on the counter. The woman's face softened when she saw Ivy. "Well, aren't you sweet?" "What's your name, honey?" "Ivy. I wanted to help hungry people." "That's very kind of you." The woman began checking the items. "We can use all of this. Thank you. Is there a hungry lady here?" Ivy asked suddenly. "She has blonde hair that's kind of gray. She was by my school." The woman's expression grew cautious. "Honey, we have a lot of ladies here. I can't really talk about specific guests. Privacy rules." "Oh," Ivy looked disappointed. "But I can tell you that everything you donated will help someone. Maybe even the lady you're thinking of." As we walked back to the car, Ivy was quiet. I could tell she was processing, trying to make sense of abstract charity versus personal connection. "Did we do a good thing, Mommy?" "Yes, sweetheart. We did a very good thing, but we didn't really help her. The specific her. We just helped. Some random person. Sometimes that's how helping works. We don't always get to see the results. We just have to have faith that we're making a difference. That's hard. I know, baby. But you're learning an important lesson about compassion. It's not always comfortable. It's not always convenient. But it matters. We stopped for lunch at Ivy's favorite restaurant, a family-friendly place with crayons and placemats to color on. While we waited for our food, Ivy pulled something out of her purse. It was her pink unicorn lunchbox, the same one she'd given away. "Ivy, where did you get that?" "I bought it back," she said matter-of-factly. "What do you mean you bought it back?" "Yesterday at school. I saw the hungry lady sitting by the fence during recess. She had my lunchbox. I told her I wanted to buy it back so I could give her something even better. I gave her all my allowance money, $8, and she gave me the lunchbox back. My blood ran cold." "You talked to her again?" "After I specifically told you I didn't go near the fence. I threw the money over, and she threw the lunchbox back. I wasn't in danger, Mommy." Ivy rose. "And look." She opened the lunchbox. Inside was a folded piece of paper, worn and dirty. She left me a note. With trembling hands, I took the paper and unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky but legible. "Thank you for your kindness. You reminded me that goodness still exists in this world. I'm sorry I frightened your mother. I didn't mean any harm. I was just so hungry, and you were so sweet. God bless you, little one." See, something clicked in my brain. A memory, distant and blurred, of a woman I'd known years ago. Before Ivy, before Trevor. Before I'd become this person, stressed, suspicious, building walls against the world. No, it couldn't be. "Mommy, are you okay? You look weird." "I'm fine, just surprised." I folded the note and put it in my wallet. "Ivy, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep engaging with this woman, no matter how kind she seems. But she's nice, Mommy." She said, "God bless me." That's what nice people say. Our food arrived, and I let the subject drop. But my mind was racing. C. Who did I know with that initial? The handwriting, the phrasing. There was something familiar about it all. That night, after putting Ivy to bed, I dug through my closet until I found my college yearbooks. I'd gone to State University about 2 hours from here, graduated 12 years ago. Most of my college friends had drifted away, casualties of marriage, divorce, career changes, geographical distance. I flipped through my senior year yearbook, scanning faces and names. And then I found her, Cassidy Thornton. We'd been roommates sophomore year. She'd been an art major, talented, creative, always laughing. We'd been close for a while, stayed in touch for a year or two after graduation, then lost contact the way people do. I pulled out my phone and Googled her name. Nothing recent. Her social media accounts had gone quiet 6 years ago. The last post on her Facebook was a cheerful photo at some art gallery opening. Cassidy smiling at the camera with a glass of wine, looking happy and healthy, and nothing like the woman at the fence. What had happened to her? I searched deeper. Cassidy Thornton, plus homeless, plus Riverside. Nothing. Cassidy Thornton, plus arrest, plus Riverside. One result, a 3-year-old police blotter mentioning a Cassidy T, arrested for trespassing and disturbing the peace. Could be her. Could be someone else. I sat back, my heart pounding. Was the woman at the fence really Cassidy? And if so, how had she gone from promising art student to homeless woman in just a few years? And what the hell was I supposed to do? I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the yearbook photo of Cassidy, young, bright-eyed, full of potential, and trying to reconcile it with the haunted woman at the fence. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it wasn't her. The handwriting could belong to anyone. C was a common initial, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I knew. Monday morning, I dropped Ivy at school, and then did something I'd sworn I wouldn't do. I drove around the neighborhood looking for the homeless woman. I found her 3 blocks from the school, sitting outside a closed convenience store, her shopping bags arranged around her like a fortress. In the morning light, I could see her more clearly than I had before. It was her. I was almost certain. Cassidy Thornton, my college roommate, was homeless. I parked across the street and watched her for 10 minutes, trying to gather courage. She wasn't doing anything, just sitting, staring into space, occasionally sipping from a water bottle. She looked exhausted, defeated. Nothing like the vibrant woman I'd known. I should drive away. This wasn't my business. We hadn't spoken in years. I had my own life, my own problems. But I couldn't. I got out of the car and crossed the street. As I approached, Cassidy looked up. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed immediately by shame. She started gathering her bags, preparing to run. "Cassidy," I said softly. "It's me, Diana Morrison. Well, Diana Fletcher now. We were roommates at State." She froze. For a long moment we just stared at each other. "Diana," she finally said, her voice rough from disuse or maybe from years of screaming or crying. I didn't recognize you at first. At the school. You look so different, successful, put together. Can we talk?" "I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just for a few minutes. There's a diner around the corner. Let me buy you breakfast." Cassidy's pride and hunger visibly warred on her face. Hunger won. Okay, we walked to the diner in silence. People stared at us, the well-dressed woman and the homeless one. I felt judgment radiating from every direction and realized this must be what Cassidy felt every single day. The diner was mostly empty. We slid into a booth in the back, and a waitress brought menus. She wrinkled her nose slightly at Cassidy, but said nothing. "Order whatever you want," I told Cassidy. "Seriously, anything." Cassidy ordered the biggest breakfast on the menu. I ordered coffee I didn't want and wouldn't drink. "So," I said when the waitress left. "What happened?" Cassidy laughed bitterly. "What happened?" "Everything, nothing. Pick a cliché and it probably applies. I Googled you. Your social media went quiet 6 years ago." "Yeah, that's when everything fell apart." She took a long drink of water, like she'd been thirsty for days. "I was doing okay for a while after college. Had a job at a graphic design firm. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. Then I got married." "I didn't know you got married. It didn't last long." "Trevor." She saw my face. "Different Trevor. Not your ex. My Trevor was, let's just say he had issues. Anger issues. Control issues. I stayed too long, told myself I could fix him, that things would get better. They didn't. The waitress brought our food. Cassidy attacked it like she hadn't eaten in days. She probably hadn't. When I finally left him," she continued between bites, "he'd already destroyed my credit, maxed out cards in my name, forged loan applications. By the time I realized what he'd done, I was drowning in debt, lost my apartment. Moved in with a friend, but that didn't last. Then another friend, and another. Eventually, I ran out of friends willing to help." "What about your family?" "Dead. Both parents died in a car accident my senior year, remember? And I'm an only child. No safety net." I did remember. She'd missed finals week because of the funeral. I'd helped her get extensions from professors, brought her tissues and terrible cafeteria comfort food. I tried everything, Cassidy said. Shelters, social services, job programs. But when you're homeless, everything becomes impossible. Can't get a job without an address. Can't get an address without income. Can't get income without a job. Can't shower or do laundry or present yourself professionally when you're living on the street. It's a trap. A maze with no exit. What about the debt? Can't you declare bankruptcy? You need money to file for bankruptcy. You need an address. You need documentation I lost years ago. It's not as simple as people think. She finished her breakfast and ordered more coffee. The waitress refilled both our cups with visible reluctance. That little girl, Cassidy said quietly. Your daughter? She's beautiful. When she gave me her lunch, I cried after you left. I haven't cried in years. I've been too numb. But her kindness broke through somehow. Her name is Ivy. Ivy, that's pretty. Cassidy smiled sadly. You must be terrified that I'm some kind of threat to her. I was, I admitted. I didn't know it was you. I just saw a homeless woman talking to my daughter and I panicked. That's fair. Some of us are dangerous. Mental illness, addiction, desperation, it changes people. I've seen things on the street that would horrify you. Are you safe? Where you're staying? I'm as safe as anyone can be without a home. I know the shelters, the soup kitchens, the places where police won't hassle you. I've learned to be invisible. It's a survival skill. We sat in silence while Cassidy finished her coffee. I was trying to process this, that someone I'd known, someone I'd laughed with and studied with and stayed up late talking to about boys and dreams and the future, had fallen so far. I should go, Cassidy said finally. You've been kind, and I appreciate the meal, but I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Wait. The word came out before I could stop it. What if I tried to help you? Really help you. Get you into a shelter long term. Help with the debt. Job applications. What if we tried to fix this? Cassidy's eyes filled with tears. Diana, you can't. It's too big. Too complicated. And you have your own life. Your daughter. I can't be your charity project. You're not. Yes, I am. And that's okay. I get it. But I don't want pity. I don't want to be someone's good deed. I just want... She trailed off. I don't even know what I want anymore. She stood up, gathering her bags. Thank you for breakfast. Thank you for remembering me as I was, not just as I am. That means more than you know. Cassidy, please tell Ivy she was right. Tell her kindness matters. Tell her not to become like the rest of us. Too scared or too busy or too self-protective to see people anymore. She left before I could respond. I sat in the booth, staring at her empty plate, and felt something crack inside me. I paid the bill and went to work, but I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about Cassidy's words. It's a trap, a maze with no exit. What if that had been me? If Trevor had been more abusive instead of just emotionally distant? If I'd lost my job instead of getting promoted? If my mother had been cruel instead of just critical? How many bad breaks would it have taken to put me in Cassidy's position? Not many, that was the terrifying truth. Not many at all. That afternoon, instead of working on the Donovan proposal, I researched homeless services, non-profit organizations, government programs, the barriers to accessing help, the complexity of the system, the ways in which being homeless made it nearly impossible to stop being homeless. Cassidy was right. It was a trap, but there had to be a way out. There had to be something I could do. I made a list of organizations, made phone calls, left messages. By the end of the day, I had a plan. Rough, incomplete, probably naive, but a plan nonetheless. I picked up Ivy from school and drove home in silence, my mind churning. "Mommy," Ivy said from the back seat. "Did you see the hungry lady today?" "Yes, sweetheart, I did. Is she okay?" I thought about Cassidy eating her breakfast like she was starving, about the shame in her eyes, about the years of suffering that had brought her to that fence. She's struggling, baby. She's been through a lot. But maybe we can help her. Really. Ivy's voice filled with hope. How? I don't know yet. But I'm going to figure it out. That night, after Ivy was asleep, I pulled out the note Cassidy had left in the lunchbox. The shaky handwriting. The humble gratitude. You reminded me that goodness still exists in this world. My 7-year-old daughter had seen humanity where I'd seen threat, had offered kindness where I'd offered suspicion, had recognized that the woman at the fence deserved dignity, regardless of her circumstances. When had I lost that? When had I become so afraid, so guarded, so quick to judge? I knew the answer gradually. With each disappointment, each betrayal, each moment of cruelty from the world, I'd built walls to protect myself and my daughter, but those walls had also blocked out compassion. Ivy was teaching me to tear them down. I just hoped I could learn fast enough to make a difference. The next morning I did something reckless. I called in sick to work. Gerald would be furious. I was already behind on the Donovan proposal. But something had shifted inside me, and I couldn't shake the urgency I felt. After dropping Ivy at school, I drove to the convenience store where I'd found Cassidy. She wasn't there. I spent 2 hours driving around the neighborhood, checking parks, alleys, underpasses, all the places I'd learned that homeless people congregated. Finally, I spotted her sitting on a bench near the public library. She was reading a book, or pretending to read, really just holding it open while staring at nothing. I parked and approached carefully, not wanting to startle her. "Cassidy?" She looked up, surprised. "Diana, what are you doing here?" "I've been thinking about what you said, about the system being a trap, about there being no way out. And I think you're wrong. Diana, I spent yesterday researching, making calls, and I think I found some options. Real options. Not perfect, but a start." Cassidy closed her book. "I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Please let me try." She was quiet for a long time. "Then why?" "Because you're my friend. Because my daughter taught me that kindness matters more than fear. Because maybe I'm tired of being the person who looks away." Cassidy's eyes filled with tears. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." We spent the day at various social service offices. It was worse than I'd imagined. The bureaucracy, the indifferent staff, the forms that required information Cassidy didn't have. But I was persistent. I had resources, a permanent address, a credit card, a phone, a car. All the things Cassidy lacked. By the end of the day, we'd accomplished temporary housing in a transitional shelter that helped homeless women get back on their feet, an appointment with a legal aid attorney about the debt situation, applications for 3 different job training programs, enrollment in a free clinic for medical care. It wasn't everything. It wasn't enough. But it was something. "I don't know how to thank you," Cassidy said as I drove her to the shelter. "Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. The hard part comes next, actually rebuilding your life." "I know. But for the first time in years, I feel like maybe it's possible. Maybe I'm not permanently broken." The shelter was in an old office building that had been converted into supportive housing. It was clean and safe, with private rooms and case managers who helped residents navigate the path back to stability. I helped Cassidy check in, filled out more paperwork, and made sure she had everything she needed for the night. "I'll come back tomorrow," I promised. "We'll work on job applications. And I'll bring some clothes. We're about the same size, right?" "Diana, you've already done so much. I'll see you tomorrow." I drove home feeling exhausted but strangely light, like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't realized was there, and I'd finally set it down. Ivy was ecstatic when I told her, in age-appropriate terms, that we were helping the hungry lady find a home and a job. "See, Mommy? I told you she was nice. I told you she just needed help." "You were right, sweetheart. You were absolutely right." That night, I finally worked on the Donovan proposal, but my heart wasn't in it. The corporate jargon, the marketing strategies, the endless focus on profit margins and brand recognition, it all felt hollow compared to what I'd spent the day doing. Over the next 2 weeks, I settled into a rhythm, worked during the day, helped Cassidy in the evenings and weekends. I brought her clothes, helped her practice job interviews, drove her to appointments. We spent hours talking, catching up on the years we'd missed, processing her trauma, planning her future. Slowly, Cassidy began to transform. With regular meals, showers, clean clothes, and a safe place to sleep, she started to look like herself again. The haunted look in her eyes faded. Her shoulders straightened. She smiled more. "I have a job interview," she told me one evening, "at a local art gallery. Just front desk stuff, but it's a start. That's amazing." "When?" "Thursday." "But Diana, I'm terrified. I haven't had a real job interview in years. What if I mess it up? What if they can tell I was homeless? What if—" "You won't mess it up. We'll practice. You're going to be great." We spent the next 2 days preparing. I helped her pick an outfit, rehearsed common interview questions, even did a mock interview. By Thursday, she was as ready as she could be. The interview went well. They offered her the job on the spot. Part-time to start, minimum wage, but with potential for growth. Cassidy cried when she called to tell me, "I thought I'd never work again," she sobbed. "I thought I was unemployable. But they gave me a chance. Someone actually gave me a chance." "You earned it. This is your accomplishment, not mine." But I felt proud anyway. Proud of her resilience. Proud of the small part I'd played in helping her rebuild. Things were falling into place. Cassidy was working, saving money for a deposit on an apartment. The legal aid attorney had filed her bankruptcy paperwork. She was attending support groups at the shelter and making progress with a therapist. And then Trevor found out. He called on a Wednesday evening, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "I heard an interesting story today," he said. "Apparently, you've been spending a lot of time with a homeless woman, taking Ivy around her, inviting her into our daughter's life. Where did you hear that? Your mother is concerned." "Very concerned." "She called me." Of course she did. My mother had noticed my distraction, my time away from work, my diminished focus on advancing my career. She'd asked questions. I'd been evasive, so she'd gone to Trevor. "Her name is Cassidy," I said carefully. "She's an old friend who fell on hard times. I'm helping her get back on her feet by exposing our daughter to a drug addict." "She's not. Do you have any idea how this looks?" "I'm already documenting everything. The incident at school, the homeless woman at the fence, your missed work days, your neglect of Ivy's safety. I haven't neglected. I'm filing for full custody." "Diana." The custody filing hit me 3 days later. Trevor's attorney had included everything, the incident at school. Statements from concerned parents, including Mrs. Carmichael from the PTA, documentation of my missed work days, and a detailed account of my association with an unstable homeless individual. They'd even included screenshots of the community Facebook group discussing the dangerous homeless woman near the school. Posts I'd forgotten existed. The document painted me as a negligent mother who prioritized charity work over her daughter's safety and well-being. My attorney, Patricia Reeves, no relation to Dr. Reeves from the Veterans story, was blunt in her assessment. "This isn't good, Diana. Trevor's building a case that you're distracted, irresponsible, and exposing Ivy to dangerous situations. We can fight it, but I need you to stop seeing this Cassidy person until the hearing. Stop seeing her. She's my friend. She's getting her life back together because I helped her, and that's admirable. But if you want to keep custody of your daughter, you need to demonstrate that she's your priority, not your friend, not your charity work, Ivy." I called Cassidy that night to explain. She took it better than I expected. "I understand," she said quietly. "You have to protect your daughter. That's what mothers do. I'm so sorry. This isn't fair to you. Life isn't fair. I learned that a long time ago. But Diana, thank you for everything. You gave me hope. You reminded me I was worth saving. That matters more than you know. I'll fix this. After the hearing, after custody is settled, don't make promises you might not be able to keep. Just take care of yourself. Take care of Ivy. That's enough. I threw myself into preparing for the custody hearing. I documented every moment with Ivy. Homework help, bedtime stories, school events. I stopped missing work. I deleted my social media accounts entirely. I became the picture-perfect mother that Trevor's lawyers claimed I wasn't, but I felt hollow. Like I'd betrayed something important. Ivy noticed, of course. "Why don't we see Cassidy anymore?" she asked one evening. "It's complicated, sweetheart. Adult stuff. Is it because of Daddy? Because he's mean about her? Out of the mouths of babes. Your daddy is concerned about your safety. We have different opinions about what's best for you. I think helping people is best for me. It makes me feel good, like I'm doing something important. I know, baby." Me too. The custody hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks away. In the meantime, Trevor exercised his visitation rights with unusual enthusiasm, picking up Ivy on schedule, keeping her for entire weekends, documenting every moment of his superior parenting. Ivy came home from these visits quiet and withdrawn. "Daddy says you don't know how to keep me safe," she told me once. "He says you care more about strangers than about me." That's not true, sweetheart. You are the most important thing in my life. Everything I do is for you. Then why did you stop helping Cassidy? I didn't have a good answer. Work was suffering too. Gerald had noticed my distraction, my lack of enthusiasm for the Donovan account. He'd started making pointed comments about commitment and priorities. I was failing at everything. The night before the custody hearing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed running through scenarios, trying to predict what Trevor's lawyer would ask, how I should respond, what evidence they'd present. At 2 a.m. my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Diana Fletcher?" A man's voice, professional but urgent. "Yes? This is Officer Chen with the Riverside Police Department. I'm calling about a Cassidy Thornton. You're listed as her emergency contact." My heart stopped. What happened? Is she okay? She was assaulted tonight. She's at Riverside General Hospital. She's asking for you. I was out of bed and dressed in minutes. I called my mother, despite everything, and begged her to come stay with Ivy. Then I drove to the hospital, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. I found Cassidy in the emergency room, her face bruised, one arm in a sling. When she saw me, she started crying. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry to call you. I know you can't be associated with me right now. But I didn't know who else to call, and I was so scared." "Shh, it's okay. I'm here." "What happened?" "I was walking back to the shelter. Some guys, they wanted my purse. The paycheck from the gallery was in there. I fought back. Stupid, I know, but I fought so hard for that paycheck, I couldn't just let them take it. They'd beaten her badly. Bruised ribs, sprained wrist, cuts that needed stitches. But she'd held on to the purse, held on to that paycheck like it was her lifeline, because it was. I stayed with her through the night, through the police report, the x-rays, the discharge paperwork. As the sun rose, I helped her into my car and drove her back to the shelter. "Thank you," she said as we pulled up. "I know this makes things harder for you, the custody thing. But I was so scared, and you were the only person I could think of to call. You did the right thing. I'm glad you called. Your hearing is today, isn't it?" "This afternoon. Then go home, shower, change, prepare. Don't let me ruin this for you." But she already had. Trevor's lawyer would find out about last night. Hospital records were discoverable. The narrative would shift from "Diana helps homeless friend" to "Diana prioritizes homeless drug addict over her own child in the middle of custody battle." I was going to lose Ivy. I drove home in a daze. My mother was in the kitchen making Ivy breakfast. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "I had to cancel my morning appointment. Emergency. I had to help a friend. That homeless woman? Diana, are you insane? You have a custody hearing in... She checked her watch. 6 hours. And you spend the night at a hospital with someone who should mean nothing to you? She means something to me, Mom. She's a human being who needed help. She's a liability. She's the reason Trevor might take your daughter. How can you not see that? Ivy appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas. Is Cassidy okay? She's fine, sweetheart. She just had a little accident. Can we visit her? Not today, baby. Mommy has that important meeting, remember? Ivy's face fell. The one where you and Daddy talked to the judge about where I'm going to live? Yes. I don't want to live with Daddy. He's mean about people. You're nice about people. I want to stay with you. My heart broke. We'll see what the judge says, okay? I showered, changed into my most conservative suit, and drove to the courthouse. Patricia was waiting outside the courtroom. Where were you last night? She asked immediately. How do you... Trevor's attorney just filed a supplemental motion. Hospital records showing you spent last night with Cassidy Thornton, who was brought in after being assaulted. Diana, what were you thinking? I was thinking that my friend needed help. Your friend is going to cost you your daughter. We entered the courtroom. Trevor was already there with his lawyer, both looking confident. The judge, Honorable Margaret Foster, was reviewing paperwork. The hearing began. Trevor's lawyer presented their case with surgical precision. The school incident, my obsession with helping Cassidy, my missed work days, my compromised judgment. They called Mrs. Carmichael as a witness, who testified that I'd seemed distracted and preoccupied at recent PTA meetings. Then they played their trump card. Last night's hospital visit. Your Honor, even knowing she had this hearing today, Mrs. Fletcher chose to spend the night helping a homeless woman with a history of substance abuse, rather than preparing to demonstrate her fitness as a mother. This pattern of prioritizing strangers over her own daughter is exactly why we're seeking full custody. Patricia did her best to defend me. She called character witnesses, presented documentation of my involvement in Ivy's life, argued that compassion was a virtue, not a flaw. But I could see Judge Foster's expression. She wasn't convinced. Does Mrs. Fletcher wish to make a statement? The judge asked. Patricia shook her head slightly, a warning. Don't speak. Don't make it worse. But I stood anyway. Your Honor, may I say something? Proceed. I took a deep breath. Everything opposing counsel said is true. I did let my daughter give her lunch to a homeless woman. I did spend time helping that woman rebuild her life. I did go to the hospital last night instead of preparing for this hearing. And I'd do it all again. Patricia closed her eyes in despair. Because my daughter was watching, I continued. Ivy was watching to see what I would do when confronted with someone in need. Would I look away? Would I judge? Would I prioritize my own comfort and safety over basic human compassion? And I realized that what I teach her through my actions matters more than what I tell her with my words. I looked at Trevor. My ex-husband is absolutely right that I've been distracted lately. That I've spent time and energy helping someone who, on paper, seems like she should mean nothing to me. But Cassidy Thornton was my friend, and when I found out she was living on the streets, when I realized that someone I'd known and cared about had fallen through every safety net our society claims to provide, I couldn't look away, even when it was inconvenient, even when it was scary, even when it cost me. Judge Foster was listening intently now. Maybe that makes me a bad mother in Trevor's eyes. Maybe putting compassion over convenience is irresponsible. But I want my daughter to grow up believing that people matter. All people. Not just the ones who look like us or live like us or make us comfortable. I want her to see someone struggling and think, how can I help? Or not, how can I protect myself? Because that's the world I want to live in. That's the world I want to build. The wait was excruciating. 45 minutes while Judge Foster spoke privately with my 7-year-old daughter. 45 minutes of Trevor's smug expression. 45 minutes of Patricia's worried glances. 45 minutes of wondering if I'd just lost everything that mattered. Finally, we were called back in. Judge Foster looked tired. I've spoken extensively with Ivy. She's a remarkably articulate child with strong opinions about this situation. Trevor leaned forward. Ivy told me about the woman at the fence, about giving her lunch, about her mother's initial reaction, which was protective and appropriate, and about how that situation evolved. She also told me about learning that the hungry lady was someone her mother knew from college, someone who had fallen on hard times through no fault of her own. The judge looked directly at me. Mrs. Fletcher, I'm not going to pretend your choices were conventional. You involved yourself in a complex situation. You spent time and resources helping someone when you could have, perhaps should have, simply called social services and walked away. You prioritized compassion over optics at a time when optics mattered greatly. My heart sank. However, Judge Foster continued, after speaking with Ivy, I'm convinced that your choices, while unconventional, were made with your daughter's best interests at heart. Not her physical safety, perhaps, but something deeper. Her moral development, her capacity for empathy, her understanding of what it means to be a good human being. She turned to Trevor. Mr. Fletcher, your concerns about safety are valid. Children need protection, but they also need guidance. They need models of ethical behavior. They need to learn that compassion isn't weakness, and that helping others isn't optional when we have the means to do so. Trevor's lawyer started to object, but Judge Foster held up her hand. Ivy told me something interesting. She said, Daddy thinks being safe means staying away from people who are different. But Mommy taught me that being safe means having the courage to help even when it's scary. I want to be like Mommy. My eyes filled with tears. Therefore, Judge Foster said, I'm denying Mr. Fletcher's petition for full custody. The existing custody arrangement will remain in place. However, she looked at me sternly, Mrs. Fletcher, you need to be more mindful of genuine safety concerns. Teaching compassion is important, but so is teaching discernment. Helping others shouldn't come at the expense of your daughter's actual well-being or your ability to function as her primary caregiver. I understand, Your Honor. Additionally, I'm ordering both parents to attend co-parenting classes. You need to find a way to present a united front for Ivy, even if you disagree on philosophical matters. She banged her gavel. Court adjourned. Trevor's face was purple with rage. He stood and stormed out without a word, his lawyer hurrying after him. Patricia let out a long breath. You got lucky. Very, very lucky. I know, don't do that again, ever. I won't. But we both knew I probably would. I found Ivy in the courthouse hallway, swinging her legs on a bench, looking small and scared. Mommy. I pulled her into a hug. You get to stay with me, baby. The judge said so, I know. She told me. She was really nice. She asked me lots of questions about you and Daddy and Cassidy. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're the best mommy in the world. That you help people even when it's hard. That you taught me to see hungry ladies as people, not scary strangers. I held her tighter. I love you so much. I love you too, Mommy. Can we go see Cassidy now? I want to make sure she's okay. I looked at Patricia, who shrugged. The hearing's over. Custody is settled? What you do now is your business. We drove to the shelter. Cassidy was in her room, resting. When she saw us, her battered face lit up. You came. Both of you. Does this mean I didn't lose custody? I said. The judge. She understood. Or at least Ivy made her understand. Ivy approached Cassidy shyly. I'm glad you're okay. I was worried about you. I'm okay, sweetie. Thanks to your mom. She saved me, not just last night, but every day for the past few weeks. She gave me a chance when nobody else would. That's what good people do, Ivy said matter-of-factly. They help. Over the next few months, Cassidy continued to rebuild. The job at the gallery led to a promotion. Her bankruptcy was finalized, wiping out the crushing debt. She moved out of the shelter and into a small apartment. She started painting again. Her art therapy, she called it. We remained close. Not best friends. We'd both changed too much for that, but connected. Bound by the experience of seeing each other at our worst and choosing to stay. Trevor remained angry, but the co-parenting classes helped. Slowly, painfully, we learned to communicate about Ivy without letting our philosophical differences poison everything. And Ivy? She continued to see the world through eyes of compassion. She started a food drive at school, organized her classmates to make care packages for homeless people, volunteered at soup kitchens with me on weekends. Mrs. Carmichael from the PTA actually apologized to me at a school event 6 months later. "I judged you," she said. "I thought you were being reckless. But Ivy's influence on the other children, the way she's teaching them to care about others, I was wrong. You're raising a remarkable child. She's raising herself," I said. "I'm just trying not to screw it up too badly." One afternoon, almost a year after the incident at the fence, Ivy and I attended an art gallery opening. Cassidy's art was featured, stunning pieces that reflected her journey from brokenness to healing. Raw, honest, beautiful. At the center of the gallery was a painting titled The Lunchbox. It showed two figures, a small girl in purple, passing a pink lunchbox through a chain-link fence, to a woman whose face was obscured by shadow. But between them, rendered in bright, hopeful colors, were threads of light connecting their hands. "That's us," Ivy exclaimed. "That's me and you at the fence?" Cassidy appeared beside us, elegant in a gallery-appropriate dress, her hair styled, her face healed. She looked nothing like the woman from the fence. But the strength in her eyes, that was the same. "It is you," Cassidy confirmed. "This painting is about the moment everything changed, when a little girl reminded me that I was still human, still deserving of kindness, still worth saving." "It's beautiful," I said. "It's sold," Cassidy said with a smile, "for enough money to cover 3 months' rent. I'm starting to believe I might actually make it." "You will," I said. "You are." That night, as I tucked Ivy into bed, she asked, "Mommy, are you glad I gave Cassidy my lunchbox, even though it caused all those problems?" I thought about the custody battle, the stress, the judgment, the fear of losing my daughter, the way my comfortable life had been upended by one act of childish compassion. "Yes," I said honestly. "I'm glad, because you taught me something important. You taught me that playing it safe isn't the same as living well, that protecting you from the world isn't as important as teaching you to engage with it. That sometimes the right thing is the hard thing, and we do it anyway." "Good," Ivy said sleepily, "because I'd do it again. I know you would, baby. That's who you are." I turned off her light and walked downstairs. My phone buzzed. A text from Cassidy. "Thank you again for coming tonight. For everything." "You gave me back my life," I typed back. "You gave me back mine. I just didn't realize I'd lost it." I poured a glass of wine and sat on my couch, thinking about the past year. About how one moment, one pink unicorn lunchbox passed through a chain-link fence, had changed everything. I'd started out as a mother trying to protect her daughter from danger. I'd ended up as a person trying to teach her daughter that danger and risk weren't the same thing. That compassion required courage. That the most important lessons couldn't be taught, only modeled. My phone buzzed again. An email from Gerald about the Donovan account. I opened it, expecting criticism or demands. Instead, I heard about your side project. The homeless woman. The custody battle. Pretty dramatic stuff. But the Donovan people heard about it too. Saw the article in the local paper about your friend's art show and your connection to her story. They want to meet with you. They're interested in socially conscious marketing. Think you're the right person to lead their campaign. Call me tomorrow. We need to talk about a promotion, I laughed. Of course. Of course, the thing I did out of genuine human decency would somehow become a career advantage. The universe had a twisted sense of humor, but I'd take it. I finished my wine and went to bed, and for the first time in a year, I slept soundly. No nightmares about custody battles. No anxiety about homeless women at fences. No guilt about the gap between who I wanted to be and who I actually was. Because that gap had closed. Not because I'd become perfect, but because I'd stopped trying to be. I'd embraced the messiness, the complexity, the impossibility of being both perfectly safe and perfectly compassionate. I'd learned that you couldn't protect your children from the world. You could only teach them to navigate it with integrity. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they'd teach you the same lesson right back. My daughter gave her lunch to a stranger, and that stranger turned out to be someone worth knowing. Someone worth saving. Someone whose brokenness wasn't permanent, whose story wasn't over, whose humanity deserved recognition. But more than that stranger turned out to be a mirror, reflecting back all my fears, my judgments, my comfortable assumptions about who deserved help and who didn't. And my daughter, my wise, compassionate, impossibly brave daughter, had forced me to look in that mirror and see myself clearly. I didn't much like what I saw at first, but I was learning to be better. One pink lunchbox, one act of childish kindness, one refusal to look away. That's all it took to change everything.